We visited Fort Clatsop State Historical Area in Astoria, Oregon on September the 21st, 2022. If you would like to get notices when I post again, be sure to subscribe right here. Just click on that button. This is the 125 acres that this park takes up. Lewis and Clark lived here from December the 8th, 1805 to March 23rd, 1806 as they reached the Pacific Ocean and turned around to head home. It took them about 3 weeks to build it.
In 1,000 feet, your destination will be on the left.
This is the end of the trip for Lewis and Clark on the Pacific Ocean. They came here and visited with the Indians and built a fort here called Fort Clatsop. We've now seen St. Louis in another trip, Fort Mandan in another trip, and now seeing Fort Clatsop. And we're going to be looking at this area, the Visitor Center and the fort exhibit itself. This is a pictorial map of their journeys. Looking outside, we see some moss-covered trees, and now it's time to head into the Visitor Center. Of course, when we get inside, we've got to do a little bit of shopping, and then we look around at some of the exhibits they have, such as Sacagawea's clothes and pictures of Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. Here we have some of them reaching the Mandan village where they stopped for the first winter. When they got to the coast, they used canoes like this to get around. And here's a statue of the arrival. They have a lot of artwork here. Here's a picture of them at the salt makers camp, making salt from the ocean water, and here's a statue outside of Sacagawea and her child. Some more of that artwork shows them outside Fort Clatsop with Native Americans trading and in building the fort itself here. A visit to Fort Clatsop from the inside. And this is a model that they have. And now it's time to head outside and to look at the fort itself. It's a replica, obviously. Let's head on into the fort and do some exploring. First, we'll look at this, the left side, where the enlisted men lived. We'll be looking at the barracks here for the enlisted men. As you can see, they had in here bunk beds for 8 people in each one of these rooms. Here's the second room. And here's the third room. They're all quite similar on that side. You can see the beds. Next, we'll stand in the back gate and look around the fort from that perspective. Here's the area we just visited, the front gate. And over here, we're going to be looking at the orderly room and the storeroom. After looking around the orderly room, we go over to look at the storeroom. This is in infrared because it was so dark in the room. Next up, we'll look at the captain's quarters. This is where Lewis and Clark lived, and this was where their office was and where they did most of their work. This and the next room were in infrared because it was so dark inside. Lastly, we'll go to Cabinot's room. This is where Cabinot and his wife Sacagawea and their child lived during their stay here. outside the fort, there's an enactor. They're having a lot of children's groups come through, and he's telling them about how they live there.
Start in a little bit, so I was getting set up here, and what I'm going to teach the students about is all about the different sources of information that we use to learn about the Lewis and Clark story and what happened here 270 years ago. Because it's one thing to listen to a park ranger tell you all these things happened, but how would the students actually know it? And so I'm going to introduce them to different sources, specifically material culture, and then we'll talk about the written word and the journals. And then we'll talk about storytelling.
Okay.
Clatsop and Chinook and other tribes have communicated the stories via oral.
And this brings us to the end of this video.